if you could go back and change certain things about your training habits to prevent injuries or future injuries, in particular chronic nagging injuries that develop after a while, what would you change?
To prevent injuries. Well, can't prevent injuries. Always.
Mitigate the risk.
Mitigate the risk. Well, so there's one thing that a lot of times injuries, the injuries that I've had tend to happen from overtraining or when I'm like forcing something through. So for instance, let's do the forcing thing through first. Let's say if I'm going from, I'm going for butterfly guard, I'm trying to sweep someone. I'm like trying to sweep them out, really kick out the leg, and I'm getting to like the like in range of motion as I'm kicking the leg, and I'm really flexing my leg out. I've had like little tweaks from that. You know, I've had these tweaks from these big explosive movements, sometimes like bridges and stuff like that. So again, maybe not one of the things I don't do now, unless it's like a competition or something, or if I have to, is I don't rely on that kind of stuff. I try not to like muscle through things as hard as I can. If I feel like I'm getting to the maximal contraction of a muscle, I tend to just back off. Like for instance, if I have someone swept and I almost have them, but I'm going to really have to put a little into it to get that last little bit, I just back off. Because I was like, first off, I probably didn't hit it clean enough. It's not as technical as I want it to be. And I don't want to risk it. So a lot of times when I'm at that in range of motion with a push or a kick or whatever, when I feel like my body is there, I tend to back off. I don't want to force it. And then the other one is overtraining. So again, kind of going back to what we talked about in the podcast with this neuroticism of not wanting to ever lose, it forces you to want to train harder and harder and harder and harder. And you cannot possibly train any harder, right? I mean, I remember like when I was getting ready for my last MMA fight, I probably trained for that fight harder than I've ever trained for anything. I mean, I was training 4 hours a day. On top of like all my teachings, I was training, you know, and and I mean, I was lifting weights, doing extra cardio, jiu-jitsu and boxing, kickboxing, sparring, MMA sparring. I mean, dude, just training all the time.
Did you know it was going to be your last fight?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't know. I just was training real hard because the guy was tough. Like the guy that I was fighting was tough, and I had fear in me. I had fear like that lit a fire under my butt. So I was like, man, I got to be ready because if I play around, this dude's tough. I was like, I need to make sure I come in ready. And so I trained my tail off. And I remember like by the end of the camp, I was like, man, I wonder if I could have done more. I physically could not have done more if I would have tried. I was just cooked. I mean, I was doing as much as I could. I was like Epsom salt baths every night, like training, like I was just done, you know? But that mindset of that training like that hard, you can do it in spurts.
Yeah.
But the problem is jiu-jitsu doesn't necessarily have a season.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because what ends up happening is you try to train like that all the time and then all of a sudden, boom, you start running into injuries, right? I think that's one of the reasons why jiu-jitsu people run into so many freaking injuries is because they train so hard all the time. Like, what are you training for? Why are you training so hard? You know, and again, it's this thing where we're all competing against each other every day. So, well, if I start to back off a little bit, like maybe I'm going to back off for about 2 months and just kind of let my body recoup and train, but not train as hard. Some of these other people are going to start getting the better of you. So what do? You keep it up, and so a lot of injuries. And so like one of the things I've gotten better with as I've gotten older is being able to undulate my training. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to take, like, for instance, I just got back from, I was training, but not hard. I was training for I spent about a month training at a much lighter pace. Literally, I didn't force anything the whole month. I was like, if I was rolling, I would like work guard retention from the bottom. I'd literally just like, let me see if I can stop their passes. When I was passing their guard, I was trying to do this position. I was like, let me see if I can get to this position and just see what happens. Like if I passed, it would just happen. If I was swept, it would just happen. Otherwise, again, I got submitted, like trying stuff. But, again, my body felt fine. Yeah. And I'll start to turn it back up a little bit, But again, I get better at that because a lot of times it was that overtraining for a prolonged period of time, which led to a lot of my injuries, I believe.
I agree.
And so being able to recognize that and back off the pedal a little bit and be okay with accepting, going back to the side of acceptance, being okay with simply saying, you know what? like while I'm going down on this month long or 2 month long, like less training schedule than when I was training before, I'm going to get beat. It's just the way it's going to be. And it'll be all right afterwards because I can always turn it back up. And so I think those would be the two things as far as training habits, because sometimes you simply just can't get away from issues. You're going to get injured sometimes. But, the overtraining and that neurotic mindset, of not wanting to ever lose created some of it. And then trying to force things through wasn't good.
Yeah. I agree with because you get injured kind of all the time. I mean, not all the time, but you get injured a lot more frequently. And you expect that someone would get injured more as they get older. Mm-hmm. But you got injured less as you got older. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, injury-wise, I would have tapped sooner. Like, I would eat certain submissions because I could.
Yeah.
But the cumulative effect of, getting your arm popped or getting it hyperextended over and over.
No bueno.
No. Over time, you start having some issues. The tendons can get, little micro tears, you can get inflammation, you get just chronic, the joint starts to break down. So that's, I think, one thing. I remember one of the first, I was very, very new, and the guy got me an arm bar. I literally stood up and tried to shake him off. And this was the old gym. And the coach, at the time, Mike was like, let him go. He was, because the guy was more experienced than I was, and I wasn't tapping. I mean, you're just grunting and you're trying just to deal with it. And so that's one thing. I would have tapped earlier or tapped out more frequently, probably, because I did get out of certain things, and it's one of those things that it's a little deceiving because I got out of it. I can do it next time. I can force my way, and it's okay to do that if the situation, say you're in a gold medal match at a tournament and you feel like you're safe to an extent. You're gonna get a little hyperextension or whatever, but. So that's one thing I would have tapped earlier, and then
doing that all the time for 10 years, though.
Yeah, it catches up to you. And then the other thing is, just changing up my game. I mean, as a younger belt, as a white belt, you said, you get an A game, and you I'm gonna just play this A game. But I think I would have tried different. Instead of being I'm gonna play guard all the time, or have grips, or this type of grips, have sleeve grips, for example. That eats up your fingers. Having sleeve grips, doing a butterfly, or just not butterfly, but a spider guard, or anything where you're grabbing just sleeves a lot or grabbing lapels a lot. So switching it up that way. And the other thing is letting go of grips. That's a big one. I would have a death grip sometimes on a lapel or collar or something, and I wouldn't let go.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I got injured, I was screwing around. I was I would grab it and just see if I could hold it and let them pop off. And I hurt my hand numerous times just messing around, just to seeing if I could, because I would mess with people. I'd grab a cross collar and I'd stare at them. Just see if you can. I would do this. It was Jeff Horn. I would mess with Jeff Horn, but he's nice to look at, so I didn't mind. No,
I'm sure you appreciate the stare.
Yeah, so I would mess with Jeff all the time because it made him uncomfortable. So I'd grab it, and one time he popped my fingers off, and I was like, "Oh my god!" But that'd be the big thing, just varying up those things. But you don't, as a white belt, you kind of find a game that works for you, and you do that over and over.
You have to,
because you were trying to survive.
You have to.
So.
I think once you're a white belt, once you get past that A game, I think once you're a blue belt area, and again, blue belt's an arbitrary thing that you get, but just sometime where you're you have a fair crop of people that you can beat, and there's still a lot of people to, get beaten by. Then you start to play.
Yeah. Use
your A game against the tough people, play game against the people that you're better than, and so this way you're constantly learning new stuff and you're constantly sharpening up your best weapons.
Yep.
It's a good idea to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's definitely. But sometimes it's hard to do that because I don't want to I've been getting crushed by these people. I'm going to go and build my ego up a little bit.
Well, I mean, sometimes if you're getting ready for a competition, it should be all A game.
Yes.
But again, it's one of those things where. It's better to play. I mean, you can still use your A game, but then you could be all right, I'm going to do, my best guard pass, and then, let's say your best position is side control.
Yeah.
Okay, well, instead of using side control, I'm going to use mount today. I'm going to try to submit for mount. Or, I remember, I know I can hold the person in a full guard. Let me try to play, open guard.
Yeah.
And if it fails, I can always lock the guard back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's one thing. Looking back, you can see that. It would be even beneficial, not just injury-wise. It'd be beneficial to expanding your game earlier, because you might find something, you might discover something like, oh, I never thought I'd be good at that, or I never thought that this would kind of integrate my game as well.
Well, and when you have different positions that you can go to, you can then kind of rotate the tires on your
Exactly,
body,
yes.
because then you don't have to use the same position that works the muscles in the same exact way, which can lead to overuse injuries and stuff.
Yep.
Like, for instance, if you're a half guard player, you tend to like fight for underhooks and your shoulders can take a beating. Well, then you could always go to like a sort of a full guard or a butterfly guard. Well, butterfly guards, you're not going to play the same positions, not going to take the same damage. Or being able to play top and bottom game. So, okay, I'm going to play more of a top game for a while. I'm not going to have the same types of injuries and positions with on my neck and my hips and everything else. And you can move it around a little bit because you have options. And so you don't have to play the same position over and over again. Only you can play other positions if you start to feel something. Like when I feel like my shoulders get a little janky from playing butterfly or half guard, I'll play a different type of guard. If that guard gives me a problem, I can always move to another one, that kind of thing.
That, and then the other point is playing one side and the other side.
Left and right, sure.
Yeah, if you're playing half guard on one side, maybe your shoulder's getting a little irritated, play on the other side. Or your knee's getting a little irritated, you're playing butterfly and your knee gets a little, little sore, a little irritated. Because sometimes in butterfly you get compressed, people compress you. So you're coming from that really bunched up position sometimes. But yeah, switching sides. And that's something I you learn as you get more experience, but that's something I would do when my knees would kind of bug me. I try to guide my opponent to the other side. I try to make them kind of pass to the other side. Yeah, because you can kind of, I was talking about that with somebody in morning class. Like sometimes I'll try to guide my opponent. Even though if they're really aggressive passer, I'll try to, come on.
Leave one side open.
Leave one side open, or because sometimes I'll use that. I don't want to. If somebody's really aggressive, more aggressive than I am, I'll play back. I'm not going to always try to meet their aggressiveness. I'll try to kind of lead them into certain traps, if you will. And so that's just modifying your game in that way is good. So.